So, thank you for tuning in to the terrific Tips for Business podcast. I'm Terry Watkins, your host. And today we have a special guest from the West Coast, Mara Barclay. And let me tell you a little bit about Mara because she is very talented. And we've recently gotten connected on social media. So I'm tickled that we're able to have her on the show today. She is an intuitive leadership consultant and neural facilitation specialist. She is best known for her groundbreaking work in the intuitive empowerment field with her book and Unbreakable Woman programs, which she presented for nearly 2 decades across the nation for federal agencies, Fortune 500 companies, and the U.S. military. She's spent more than 10 years teaching immersive workshops and teacher trainings in therapeutic yoga, meditation, and embodied anatomy. Her work as a firefighter, two-time winning bodybuilder, and martial artist have informed her process of helping people become embodied, surrender to something bigger and wiser than themselves, and leveraging that broader perspective to gain clarity and a quiet mind. She specializes in helping leaders and influencers return home to the tender truth of their soulful selves. Through her Soulful Leader Transformation Intensive Program, Mora helps leaders to let go of past pains and step into a new way of being that's aligned with their authentic power, voice, and truth so that they can make the biggest possible impact. Join me in welcoming Mora to the show. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. So you have had quite a life. What a wonderful transformation. How do you go from being a bodybuilder to being somebody of this spiritual, peaceful meditation leadership that you do?
Well, it's funny that the bodybuilding piece was kind of by default because I had been a competitive gymnast for, gosh, a decade as a kid. And then I got into college and they didn't have a gymnastics program. There wasn't anything for me to do. So I'm like, well, I learned how to lift weights a little bit in my training as a gymnast. So maybe I'll just go to the gym. And this was back in the day. I was one of two girls in the free weight room. I won't tell you how old I am, but it was a while ago. And so I'm like, where are all the women? Why am I the only girl in here? And so I noticed because of my genetics that I got very quick responses. And then I started lifting weights so much and I got so kind of big and strong. I'm like, well, now what do I do? Like, I want a challenge. I'm like, well, maybe I'll try bodybuilding. That sounds like fun. And it was very, very silly. It was the challenge of the science. It was, I wanted to understand diet, nutrition. I wanted to understand kinesiology a little bit. I just was doing it as a hobby, but I really wanted to be a master. I wanted to be masterful at it. And it was actually the posing. This is the greatest irony, or maybe the paradox of bodybuilding. It was the posing that gifted me something called kinesthesia. I don't know if you've ever heard that word. Kinesthesia is your ability to sense where your body is through motion in space. And so this gave me this incredible sense of my inner self. And that led to sensing the world in a new way. And it became, it evolved into a kind of spiritual understanding, sort of beyond the flesh, because it's sensing. And it all started with posing. It's ridiculous, but that's what happened. I mean, bodybuilding served a couple of different purposes in my life, and that was chief among them for sure.
Very cool. So with this new way of like being more in tune with yourself and being more in tune with the world around you, that in itself kind of creates a peace, I would imagine.
It did it, and what it also helped me very clearly understand energy. My energy, other people's energy, how to bring it in, how to put it out, how to shift it, how to change it. In my book, I created one of the things that I taught in my book for women, because initially I was just working with women. It was a skill that I called changing the weather. Now, any man who's been on the other side of this knows this very well, or a child. Changing the weather is when a woman goes from this sort of yummy, sort of light energy to like, I'm not quite sure how else to describe it. The energy just changes. The temperature in the room seems to drop as her expression becomes more serious, and you can just feel everything kind of go woo, and the men are like and the children are like, run. I mean, it's a thing. Like it's energetic, and I taught women how to master this for the purposes of personal safety. And I saw that it had a broader application, which is why I went from the sort of survival, personal safety, advanced situational awareness world to this works in business, and this is really about what's going on inside you. So I opened up the aperture on my desire to help and my ability to help. And so I moved from that sort of small container to this larger. This is going on in meetings. Everybody sitting in this room is having an energetic experience. And if you get quiet and you tune in, you'll be able to feel the truth, not only of yourself, but everyone around you. It's quite handy for negotiation and hiring and firing, for that matter, as well.
Yeah. Well, and I think especially if you're in a boardroom situation, if you're going to do a pitch to an organization, it's really handy to be able to determine what mindsets are people walking into this room with. Because you're going to have the critic, the person who's going to be skeptical of everything that you have to say. And you're going to have the person who's like ooh-rahing and cheering you on. There's always going to be those two dynamics in the room. But then what other dynamics are at play in the room? And what did they just leave? Did they just come out of a bad phone call with a family member or out of a firing meeting from somebody else? Like, did they just have a really bad experience, stressful experience when they walked into that room that you're about to present to? And how can you read that energy and shift the way that you're going to have those conversations for the best possible outcome for everybody that's in the space? Do you have some tips that you might be able to share with us to help us kind of become more in tune like that?
Absolutely. I would say, almost everything I teach comes down to what I call divine selfishness. And it is this extraordinary, radical accountability that you have for yourself. And it's part of the self-mastery process that I teach through my transformational intensive work that I do. I have a mastermind, but I have one-on-one clients that I work with to help them get this and really wield it as a skill. So I would say the most important thing that you can do when you're going into a room full of dynamics, number one, is understand that everyone's going to be who they are, and there's only so much influence that you have. You do have influence, and it's called entrainment. Entrainment is the process by which everyone's nervous system begins to entrain with the most calm, most powerful nervous system in the room. And that can be you. Now, typically this power is held by the alpha. Typically this power is held by the person whom everyone is deferring to. Through subordination, they are in training with that person's nervous system. However, when you step into a scenario, this isn't about force. This is about invitation. You step into a situation where you're pitching or you're communicating to a group of very diverse people. That the first thing that needs to happen is imagine that you are providing a container for people. This is your first and foremost responsibility. You are inviting people into your field. So you need to get coherent, as Dr. Joe Dispenza likes to say. There's a series of, if we had more time, I would elucidate more, but here's a little quickie thing you can do. Before you do anything, you sit quietly without distraction. Don't let anyone bug you. And I would say either put earbuds in, or if you're skilled enough at this, get quiet and listen to the sounds around you. Let those sounds become your thoughts. So you're trying to, it's very difficult to think nothing, but if you allow the sounds to influence what's going on inside, now you're starting to come into harmony with your environment. So you're reducing resistance. Now you have more energy to increase your field, right? And then bring your awareness right into your heart. This is the most powerful electromagnetic field generator that we have, the heart. Everyone likes to think of the heart and love as romantic. No, that's the tiniest little piece, the piece of it, right?
Right.
Your heart is this amazing field generator. So you get yourself in harmony with the room and you bring your energy into your heart, and you feel, just feel that, feel your capacity to create safety and understanding and communicate whatever it is you're trying to communicate. You can feel your opportunity to give. You can feel your opportunity to give here. What do I want to give? How am I going to influence the people around me? What is it that what is it I want to teach them with my presentation? Never mind pitching. Never mind what you're going to get out of it. What are you giving these people? What story are you telling them? How are you inspiring them? That all comes from here. So when you show up and you're in harmony with your environment, just by letting it be you and you being it, and you surrender to giving what you're giving, you suddenly, when you realize I have a story to tell, it doesn't matter what people walked in there from. The only thing they're going to be interested in is what the hell is going on in the front of the room. What is that? Now you have their attention because you're inviting them gently into your experience, in the experience of your field, in the experience of your story, of the experience of whatever it is that you're sharing with them, what you're giving them. So if you walk in with generosity and a good story, and you're calm, you're coherent, their nervous systems will come to you. And that is happening before anything happens. That's happening whether you know it or not. So it really serves you to get good at this stuff. Just because it's invisible doesn't mean it doesn't move. It's not powerful. I give you the wind as an example.
Yeah, right.
We can't see it, but it'll blow over a house. Okay.
Yeah. We can't
so can you
see it,
with your energy.
Right. We can't see it, but it'll power. It produces power for our planet in so many ways.
Yes, it does.
And that's so good because we have some of the world's greatest thought leaders that have talked about the giving mentality. And we've heard people talk about giver's gain, like the guy who developed BNI, Business Networking International, talks about giver's gain. Yeah. But this at its core is what giver's gain is, right? It's not about what am I gaining when I walk into this room of business people. It's about what am I giving when I walk into this room of business people? How am I giving of myself to these people so that way they can have a more positive experience with me?
Exactly. And this is what Soulful Leader is about. That's why I developed this. Because if you're going in and you're pitching some sort of like what seems to be very mundane tech, you're not, the only thing you're going to care about is that you want buy-in. Because when your soul is not in it, your only win is to get what you're trying to get. Do you see what I'm saying? If you're not pursuing a soulful purpose, if you don't have your soul in everything you do, then the only thing that you can hope for is a positive outcome. When your soul is in it, now we have passion. Now we have our essence. And it is so much bigger than whatever the hell it is we're pitching. It has nothing to do with that. It is a transcendent experience that you're providing in the boardroom because of what this means to you. And it could be blockchain, but what does it mean? That's what soulful leadership is about. What does it mean? Where are we going? What the hell are we doing here? Why are we all here? Every single conversation can be about that. Does that make sense?
That does make sense.
That's where soulful leadership comes in. I always say we got to take corporations to church. Like I don't believe in like religion and church and la la la. There's nothing like that. What I mean is like if corporations are people, who's teaching them what's right?
Right.
Who's teaching them what's right? Who are the souls? Who are this? If a corporation is a person, let's just go with that. I'm not going to resist that. That's real right now. Yeah. Who's informing the soul of this enormous multi-celled being that is a corporation? Where's the soul?
That is so good. And I talk a lot about marketing to the heartline because people don't make logical decisions when it comes to making purchases for their self, for their house, for their business. It's not usually a logical decision. It's an emotional decision. So if we can talk to the heartline, like you're talking about, identifying your own heartline so that you can share that heart with the people that you're coming in contact with. When we market to the heartline, we're figuring out what their heart is and drawing it out of them so that we can connect heart to heart instead of just connecting from the bottom line or from the dollar amount, because dollar amount connection is something that's fleeting. It can pass. Whereas if we're connecting on the heart level, you're going to have a much deeper, longer lasting relationship with every person you come in contact with and every person that does business with your business, because they have a energetic desire to be part of your business because you have had an energetic desire to be part of their life. And so if you can connect on that level, it creates such a deeper, more beautiful relationship with every encounter that you have. I love it. I love the work that you do. It's so cool.
Well, I love what you're talking about. Yeah, like what you're talking about is elevating people. It's not just about the short-term economics of this. And finally, Gary Vee is talking about this. Like, here's this like massively successful guy who, like, you know, crushing it, right? Still crushing it, right? I love Gary Vee because he talks about love. Gary Vee is one of the few people who really embodies and has created a space in people's minds for love in business. Right. And it's exactly what you're talking about, because this is our biggest vibrational tool right here. This is the field, right? So what you're talking about is elevating people through business, but connecting and creating resiliency through these partnerships, which are heart-centered leadership, servant leadership. That's exactly what you're talking about. Is soul smart.
Yeah. Well, and it helps because we've all heard the saying, a rising tide floats all boats. It's that same concept. So if we can find it within ourselves to care enough about ourselves and about the people around us and about the environment around us, now we are the tide, and the environment around us and the people in that environment are the boats. And if we are going to bring the tide and rise the tide, then the tide has to rise all boats. And we do that by having that mindfulness, that center of knowing who we are and the power that we actually have, because we're pretty powerful beings.
We're omniscient. I mean, that's kind of the big joke is, you know, the more you focus on something as small as money, something as finite as money, you completely miss all of the power that we have to take that finite concept and create massive abundance for everyone. And not just wealth. It's not just money. It's, you know, if you consider how many resources we have on this planet, it is absolutely astonishing. It's absurd to me that anyone anywhere is lacking anything. That's social stratus. Social strata. That's all that is. That's the human condition, because we're animals.
Yeah.
We're animals, and there's always a social structure, even, you know, we're pack animals. So, you know, it really is going to come down to, like you're talking about, Terry, more focus on the heart in addition to economics. Like, those two things need to go hand in hand. And I tell you, I feel like I'm a little ahead of the curve here, because the businesses that adopt this, the early adopters, they are going to crush their competitors, because the culture, the environments that people will be working in, those organizations that are heart-centered, because whatever the business is starts with the leadership, right? They build the culture. It's their nervous systems, like in training everybody else, and all their policies ripple down. When I worked in prevention, I worked in harassment prevention. I'm like, this is all vanity training, all of it. Unless you're working at the senior VP or the C-suite level, it's not going to do anything. And they're going to need to buy in and be like, yeah, this isn't really cool. We don't want to work in a company where these type of behaviors happen. If that happens, you're out. I don't care who you are. Done. Male, female, you know, trans, gay, straight, you're out.
Doesn't matter. Yeah.
Yeah, doesn't matter. CEO says this, like, oh, then it would change instantly. But that ain't how it works right now, right yet. But the company that gets that right, think of the diversity is priceless. When you have the economics are out there. All these studies have been done. This isn't me coming up with this. Diverse decision-making groups are far more profitable by, I want to say, a net 6% gain in the marketplace. Nobody has really done that very, very well, not at the highest enterprise levels. The company that does is going to crush it. And then all the other companies are suddenly going to have this like, oh, diversity, we're on board. Like, all right, who cares how you got there? Just do it, right? Who
Right.
cares? They're going to have to, because it's coming. I'm so excited about the millennials getting into positions of leadership. Nothing gets me more excited, because these are people who don't care about your title. See what? I don't care how. I want to have a meeting with you. I want to have coffee with you. And they're like, hey, you can't do that. They're like, why?
Why? Yeah.
I don't care about your title. All I care is that my job makes sense, that my job has a purpose, that I feel good doing my job.
Yeah.
That's all I care about. I know this about this generation. And I'm just like, good luck, businesses.
And I
These
think
kids only care about their purpose.
right. And that's what scares some of these organizations that exist today, is because they don't know how to deal with that. They don't know how to deal with, what do you mean a title doesn't matter? We have titles for structure. Structure is important. Is it though? How important is structure when it comes to titles? Is it really necessary to have a structure by title, or is it more necessary to have a structure of process? Titles don't matter. If the process works, then you don't need a title to have the right process. You just need to have the process. And I think the millennials are breaking the titles because they're not focused on title, they're focused on process. How can I work more efficiently? How can I know that my work matters? How can I feel good about the work that I'm doing? How can I know that I'm not wasting my life pushing paper around a desk all day? Nobody wants to do that. So if they want to have their work matter and they want to know that the work they're doing is having an impact, titles don't matter anymore. All that matters is, how can I do it faster, better, stronger than the other guy down the road? Because I want to accomplish more by the time I'm 30 than the guy down the road.
And I want to live a life.
Yeah.
Like, I want to go and enjoy myself. I like this whole notion of, it's fascinating to see, like, boy, like that the culture clash that is going on internally is really remarkable. And it's really, it's funny to me that it might not be like the big companies have money built in to handle lawsuits. Like, there's a lawsuits for harassment and things like this. Like, that's just part of their budget. They'd rather do that than have policy changes at the top. It's true. So culture takes time to culture's a big boat. Even when you turn the wheel, that boat still like this, right?
Yeah.
So, I heard I think it was, I want to say it was, I don't know if it was Harvard Business Review or it was Forbes. I read something like 75% of the workforce by 2024 is going to be millennials. Oh, what's going to happen? Never mind the harassment stuff. What are you going to do with an entire workforce that is like, meh, show me how it matters.
Right.
Show me how it matters. Make me see how it matters. Like, I can't wait to see what's going to happen.
Well, and I think this situation that we're in right now, because we're worldwide dealing with this COVID virus stuff as we're recording this conversation. And I think this situation has really started to force some of these bigger companies to realize, I've already given you a laptop, I've already given you a cell phone. You really could technically work from anywhere, but I required you to be in the office anyway. And now these millennials are like, let me just show you how much more I can get done from home. I think you're going to want me to stay here instead.
Yeah, like, it's ridiculous to me that we have these enormous buildings and like all the cubicles. I'm like, this is the most unnatural way for people to work. Like, having work groups, having people to get together locally. I mean, understand, listen, we do need to come together. There is a big bonus, or there's a big, it's important to do face-to-face.
Yeah.
And the one thing that millennials are accustomed to is digital connection.
Yeah.
But this human soul to soul, heart to heart business, that's important.
Yeah.
So that's the growth that needs to happen in that generation. Just because digital natives, like, no, we're good. We text. I'm like, wait a minute. There's something else that you're missing. And I feel like one of the reasons that this whole generation is feeling like meh is because it's easy to connect instantaneously, to have this feeling of connection through digital means, but it's not real. It's not really happening. You're not getting that entrainment. You're not getting that electromagnetic exchange. It's very preclusive, digital communication.
Well, so much
So it
is
has its
lost.
place.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, so much is lost in
exactly.
the digital
Yeah,
space, especially if we're only relying on the words that are written on the page. You
yeah,
lose the tone of voice and the inflection, and tone gives meaning to words. And you lose the body language, and that body language gives meaning to words and phrases too. And if you aren't able to experience those pieces, you're really missing out on a whole, I want to say there was a study done, and I can't remember who did it, but I want to say it's 85% of communication is not about the word. It's higher.
95.
95.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
It's higher.
I mean, we have to be able to, it'll be very interesting to see how the millennials change the workforce to help us realize certain things don't matter as much as we think they do, but also how are we going to help them understand that some things actually matter more than you think they do? And how
Right.
can we
Well,
come together on that?
I feel like the big missing piece and the reason that they're so apathetic, and that's not a judgment. That's what I'm seeing. That's what I'm hearing. There's an apathy to this entire generation because they're not being taught or conditioned through repetitive means to receive.
Mm.
They get this instantaneous digital. It's all here. I feel like they're not. This whole generation hasn't had the opportunity to be moved and receive soulful information. So I'm just gonna call it spiritual tech because it's all information. It really is all just information. Energy is information. Emotion is energy in motion. I feel like the digital space has created a membrane, if you will, over the reception at the physical level of this data, and that this is a generation who has not had that impact like others. I don't know that to be true, but that's my perception. That it makes complete sense to me because this is data, but that data goes here. I mean, a little bit here, but it's really a lot here.
Yeah.
And this is what's missing. This is what's missing. And we can connect an entire generation back into their heart. Suddenly they'll be like, oh my God, I totally get why Excel spreadsheets are transcendent. This is my Zen work right here, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think it'll be interesting too because of the changes. I was just talking with a doctor friend of mine who's in pediatric dentistry. And I asked her, I said, what's one of the things that you see is going to be a consistent, lasting change from this COVID-19 thing? And she said, the personal space, the bubble, that we now have to have this extreme caution for physical interaction. What ripple effect is that going to have on future generations? If we've already lived in a world where our millennial generation isn't connecting from the soulful level or the physical space, they're only connecting from the mental space, and they've had the ability to have this physical interaction. What's going to happen to the next generation that can't have that physical interaction with people?
You're going to have it. You're going to see the fact that's units. I feel like it's going to drive more intimacy through family units because now in the public space, if we are all going to, if that's true, then, and we're all experiencing this distancing out in public, then good luck on the subway, by the way. There's going to be places where that just simply is not going to go down. But in general, I get it. I think it's going to bring more emphasis. Naturally, the balance is going to occur in the intimacy of family units because we have to have touch. We have to have hug. We have to have that. In fact, the reason that hugs are so important is that compression is sedating, by the way. That's a neurological thing. Every time you get a hug, your nervous system just goes, it ratchets down. That's why when people are upset, you give them a hug, you squeeze them, and their body naturally chills out. Temple Grandin figured that out and put cows through it so that they're calm when they go to slaughter. That's what that's about.
Right.
Really important to be touched and hugged. We have to have it. I'll give you a perfect example. There was this awesome picture. I got this from a biology book when I was a kid. There's a study done with rhesus monkeys babies, and they had a surrogate mother myth made out of like wire that kind of looked like a monkey. One
Mhm.
of them was like just wire but had milk.
Mhm.
So wire and milk, like food, like to live. The other one was wrapped in this really soft fabric, but no milk. That monkey would not let go of that fabric.
I think I've read that study. Yeah. The monkey
Yeah,
was
we need
attracted to
touch.
the soft because it felt like them. It felt like them. They
Yeah,
were soft, so it
it's
felt like them.
nurturing.
Yeah.
We need touch. We need nurturing. We need hugging, the squeezing. This is critical to our development as a primate, as an animal, and in our way of being a mammal. So as we move forward, it's going to be increasingly important that there are places where this critical contact occurs. And I'll bet there will be means of providing to some degree ourselves with our own contact. Like I have a self myofascial release practice that I have with these wonderful balls. It's from Tune Up Fitness.
Mm.
And I can give myself a full back massage, massage any part of me. Now it approximates a human. It's not quite the human touch, but because there's an exchange. There's an exchange that happens. And that's the only thing that we don't get here. We need that exchange. This is what I'm talking about with the millennials. We need to have that exchange. And I think it's just going to put us into a safe place where we'll be able to get that exchange. It's going to kind of drive us into each other's arms in safe homes where, everything's clean.
And nobody's
Everything's been
infected.
cleaned. That's right. Mask up. I have a picture. I was talking to my folks. My folks live in Florida, and we were having this discussion. We were joking around, but like they put their gloves on and their masks, and I had my even doing Zoom, and we're like, "Nice to see you." It was very silly, but like, yeah. Well, we'll see. We'll see, because who's going to develop immunity? Who knows? We don't know. We're adept. We don't know. We don't know what's going to happen.
But the nice
Yeah.
thing is as humans, we're very adaptive. We've learned over centuries we don't know what's coming. There might be a mountain lion around the corner. That's okay. We'll be fine. We'll figure it out when we get there.
Mm-hmm.
And we
Yep.
do. We adapt and we change and we shift and we grow. Shh, you're okay. And we're always okay. Sorry, that was my dog who is apparently having a bad dream. She's like kicking frantically.
No,
So I just
not
wanted
dog.
to encourage her that she's okay. But in the corporate space, is there a best way? I mean, obviously, being in touch with ourselves is the best way. But if you're not used to doing that process, what's maybe something somebody can do who's not used to getting in touch with their self and their space before they have a conversation with either a millennial or somebody who is of the boomer generation? How do we bridge that?
So what process are you saying? I want to give you the best, most relevant information. Can you clarify the question for me a little bit?
Yeah, I was thinking like if you're in the business space and you're walking into a business meeting, whether you're the baby boomer or you're the millennial, how do
Okay.
you mind meld to make that meeting the best possible if you're not used to getting in touch with your self and understanding the energy of the room and how you affect that?
Okay. So the first thing I would say is start the practice of getting in touch with yourself. It's a critical skill.
Yeah.
Number one, it's part of self-mastery. We're not taught that this is important. It absolutely is. As a species, we're seeing more and more the importance of mindfulness practices, resiliency practices, emotional intelligence, self-regulation. Getting in touch with yourself helps you self-regulate. It creates emotional intelligence. So that's number one. Number one, start that process as soon as possible. Find a coach, find a teacher. That's why people like me do what we do. Start. Number two, in lieu of starting right now, because it's right now and you're going to work, the number one thing you can do is remind yourself to be compassionate with the person you're talking to. Compassion breeds empathy. So for example, even though the person you might be talking to is from a completely different generation, has a completely different cultural context for how they interpret things, I encourage everyone to be compassionate, and the way that you can do this with very little self-awareness is just remember that the person you're talking to has wounds has scars, battle scars, emotional wounds that you cannot see, and that they are influenced by years and years of conditioning in whatever environment they were in. So that can work in a number of ways depending on what the conversation is about. Remember that at all of our core, we are all the same. We all want the same thing. We all want love. We all want to feel like we're doing something important to make a difference. We all want to feel we're important and special, right? All of us. And we all want abundance and success. We all want the same stuff. Yeah. If you can remember that you have way more in common than with the person that you're talking to than difference, that's helpful. And that if they're coming with something that feels hard for you, that is challenging for you, remember that they're fighting battles that you don't understand. Mm-hmm. There you go.
I love it. And that's a great note to think about, because we've all heard take a minute to walk a mile in somebody else's shoes. We do all have a lot more in common than we do different. And we all have battles that somebody else has no idea we're fighting. So we all have a past. We all have something that we've done before this moment. And we all have a future. And whether that future is us together or not, it doesn't matter. All that matters is right now you have the opportunity to have a positive impact on somebody else. And they have the opportunity to have a positive impact on you. And remember, what we see in other people is a reflection of ourselves. So if what you see in somebody else is something that's frustrating to you or irritating, take a pause for a moment and thank them for showing that to you so that you can do some of the inner work to be better.
Oh yeah, that's fantastic self-awareness.
Yeah.
That's like it. If you can just be like, gratitude, you're bugging the crap out of me. Thank you. that's some mastery right there, Terry. That's what that is. That's fantastic. If you can do that.
Way easier said than
you're
done.
Absolutely right.
Way easier said than done.
That's one of those simple, not easy deals. Yeah, for sure.
Exactly. Maura, this has been a fantastic conversation. I feel like we can keep going, but I do want to respect your time and our listeners. So let's do this. What's the best way for our listeners to get in touch with you?
I have a website, soulfulleader.com, and it's one L. It's a word smash. So it's soulful, same L, EADER, right? Soulfulleader.com. My email is maura@soulfulleader.com. And there's all kinds of information on my site to acquaint you with what I do. Yeah.
Awesome. And do you still do corporate trainings? Are you primarily doing like Zoom calls, or what kind, or just the group classes? Because you mentioned group classes. So tell me a little bit about some of the offerings that you have on the table right now.
Certainly. So I have a transformational intensive one-on-one that I do, and I tend to work with people in positions of leadership, senior director, senior managers, this type of level at this time. And you don't have to be a leader. It's just that the work works best with people who have a certain degree of desire to self-innovate. And leaders tend to be the action takers that can really take this work and run with it. I only work with 5 new clients at a time. I'm extremely selective because the work is really intense, and I deliver results. Well, I help my clients deliver their own results, but that takes a lot of time, focus, and energy. And so I only work with this many people one-on-one. I have a mastermind, a transformational mastermind that I run about every 90 days. And that's a lower touch experience. It's once a week, and it's in a group. So you do get the group mind. And that's something that I run leadership labs, and I have people come in that way. And I also do groups. I had some things scheduled before everything stopped on the East Coast, your hood probably. So yes, I do corporate trainings, and I tailor everything to meet the needs of the client. So typically it's ongoing workshops for a period of time so that people have an opportunity to apply the tools, the self-mastery, resiliency, and emotional intelligence tools. That's primarily what I bring to business. Yeah.
Phenomenal. Well, you do some amazing work. I've certainly enjoyed the conversation. I know our listeners are going to enjoy listening to the conversation. And I want to encourage everybody who's watching this after the fact to get in touch with Maura, follow her on her social media, and just get in touch with yourself. Connect with that heart line, because I think that's where we can change the world. We can move mountains when we tune in. So thank you so
For
much for
sure.
being here.
And as far as social, yes, thank you so much, Terry. I really appreciate it. It was so much fun. Thank you.
Yeah. What were you going to say? I'm sorry.
Oh, that's all right. I have a private Facebook group called the Soulful Leader Collective, and a lot of people find me there.
Oh, good. Yes. So if
Yeah,
you're on Facebook, make sure to tune in there. That's great. Thank you so much. I'm so glad that we got a chance to spend this time together.
it was so fun. I really appreciate the conversation. Thank you, Terry.
Sure.